oceans roll. The stars shine. The wind blows. And children play. The flower blooms. A dog sleeps. And birds fly. We take them all for granted when they move harmoniously. Yet we are confounded when malfunction occurs. We feel the universe is governed by an infinite cause, that God is omnipotent, all-powerful. The Bible tells us,
"And God saw everything that he had made, and behold, it was very good."
Yet we sometimes wonder if there could be another cause, an opposing cause to the primal one. And we ask if one is fact, the other fiction. One truth, the other illusion. This universe comes to us as consciousness. Otherwise, there would be no universe to us. We could not be aware of it. Truth and illusion, illusion and truth. Aren't we all searching for truth in one way or another? Are any of us satisfied for very long with the lure of illusion? The search for truth can be misdirected or sublimated in many ways. Here is an example where intelligence and knowledge negates illusion. No one fears that if a railroad train travels along these converging rails, it will encounter serious trouble. We simply know the truth about the parallel rails and ignore what the senses tell us. Here is another illusion that bothers us not at all. Every evidence of physical sight says the sun is setting into the ocean, but intelligence tells us differently. The illusion of motion pictures is deceiving you at this very moment. Generally, we want to be fooled by and accept the illusion of movement set forth by a moving picture film. It is only when we enter upon a search for reality concerning the operation of a motion picture that the facts of an illusion interest us. There is not the least bit of actual movement in the scene you just watched. The illusion of motion is dependent upon a phenomenon of sight called subsistence of vision.
Are you trying to tell me that the whole world of the motion picture, the busy studios, the stars' homes with their swimming pools, the large theaters, the tremendous cost of the big spectacles, are all based on an illusion?
Let me explain. In the mechanism of cinema projection, an absolutely still photograph is held rigidly in the aperture of the projection machine and is uncovered momentarily by a revolving curtain or shutter. Even the movement from one photograph to the next is obscured from the viewer by the revolving curtain. if we were not so easily fooled, this is what we would see.
But what have these exposés to do with our daily life?
The basis for happiness is knowing what is true, thereby dispelling the illusion of what is untrue, as in the example of the railroad tracks. The conviction that truth, when found, necessarily results in definite positive good was the cornerstone of the Platonic philosophy. Modern physics knows that the materialistic philosophy must be modified and has already discredited the concept of the materialistic truly real. In the field of the atom, we cannot escape the conclusions that our earlier notions of reality are no longer applicable. Recently, Harold H. Huyton, a chemist with the DuPont Company, told a symposium on nuclear physics,
"All matter, everything in the universe, could be broken down to a kind of energy akin to light."
What then can be considered real? What can be considered substantial? Let us consider mind, not brain, but mind as distinct from brain. The problem of overcoming this world seems so overwhelming to us because we are not aware that the world is formed by each one of us in his own mind. Someone hurts us, someone else gives us pleasure, and we react. Where is the hurt? Where is the pleasure? In our mind. It is like this with everything of which we are aware. From the standpoint of modern science, Professor Whitehead, one of the great scientist philosophers, points out the same fact. Says he,
"Nature gets credit which should in truth be reserved to ourselves. The rose for its scent, the nightingale for its song, the sun for its radiance. The poets are entirely mistaken. They should address their lyrics to themselves and should turn them into odes of self-congratulations on the excellency of the human mind."
did matter precede thought? The pot cannot talk back to the potter. The tree cannot say,
I am a tree. Behold my beauty and majesty.
It is mind that identifies a tree and decides on its appearance. Perhaps you have heard the question, if a tree fell on a remote island with no one around to hear its crash, would it make a noise? The answer is decidedly no. Sound or noise is made by waves or vibrations causing a movement of the diaphragm in the ear. What is more, even this action or reaction could not be transferred into sound unless there was a mind or mental process to interpret it. Are we beginning to discover that mind is necessary to experience? Well, perhaps as far as sound is concerned. What about the color of a wildflower on the remote island? Light and color vibrations are akin to sound vibrations. The answer is the same. We can readily admit that the retina of the eye is necessary to perceive color. But how much color could an eye interpret without mind? None. Without mind, an isolated physical eye could not distinguish light from darkness. We might even consider the substance matter of the remote island itself and still come up with the same answer. Inasmuch as we seem to be dealing with the subject of metaphysics, it might be well to give here a definition of metaphysics. According to Webster,
the primary meaning of metaphysics is derived from the discussions by Aristotle, which deal with the nature of being, with cause or genesis, and with the existence of God.
Aquinas considered it to be concerned with the cognition of God. Mary Baker Eddy wrote,
"Metaphysics is above physics, and matter does not enter into metaphysical premises or conclusions. Metaphysics resolves things into thoughts and exchanges the objects of sense for the ideas of soul."
The alphabet and the multiplication table operate in the mental realm. We have all the letter A's that we will ever need. The supply is infinite. No one can manipulate a corner on letter A's and run up the price whenever we need to use one. The same goes for numbers. Help yourself to all the fives you need. So you see, changing things into thoughts is not so bad as it first might appear.
Do you mean to tell me that that new car of mine is only an idea?
Don't be frightened, pal. It will be just as useful to you in this new concept, and you can be just as proud of it. A great number of shiny new material cars end up in the junk heap in a few years. But the idea of a car as effortless, smooth transportation is something you don't even have to have insured. Like the letter A's. Help yourself to a new car.
There went my brand new Lincoln.
Which do you think came first? The idea of an orange or the piece of perishable fruit? As regards the atom bomb, you certainly know what came first. The same is true of the orange, and it remains an idea, first and last. The idea or the dollar bill. If you have a well-fixed idea of infinite supply, you have something permanent and indestructible, and you can go any place in the world as long as you have a well-founded, permanent idea of the true meaning of wealth. As a matter of fact, if the truth were known, you simply cannot have a dollar bill without having it in consciousness, in mind. Your dollar's in the bank, a mental concept. Don't be frightened. They are more secure that way. Have you ever heard of the other multiplication table, the counterfeit one? This is the negation, the lie about the true one, the error. Sound ridiculous? Not so ridiculous as many other things the same evil thinking has conjured up to confuse us. But all experience, being subject to mind or consciousness, makes it possible for us to admit or reject those conditions which cause harmony or inharmony, happiness or unhappiness. Shakespeare said,
"As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he."
whatever a man accepts into his consciousness, so is he. There just isn't any other place for the condition to be. Do you want some other opinions? Confucius.
When you see a good man, try to emulate him. When you see a bad man, examine your own heart.
What is heart but consciousness? Plato.
What thou seest, that thou beest.
William Thackeray.
The world is a looking glass. And gives back to every man the reflection of his own face.
If we make our own world, our world of consciousness, it would mean that we cannot blame anyone for any condition that we seem to be suffering under.
It takes courage to admit it, but that is true. Reality is right here and now, in our consciousness. There simply is no out there.
So now you're telling us that time and space have no reality. Don't make me laugh. Even by the fastest jets, it takes hours to cross the Atlantic.
New York is a concept of mind. London is also a mental concept. And in reality, you even take the jet into consciousness. How often have we said, I will take the train, or let us take a plane? The plane does not take us. We take the plane. Did you ever try to think of the beginning of time or the end of space? These are impossible concepts. Consequently, time and space have no materialistic reality. Why, even to a present-day astronaut, our concept of time goes askew. Albert Einstein explained the complete instability of time. Is there anything reliable about time as we know it? Someone traveling from Los Angeles to New York City in an afternoon finds his watch 3 hours off when he gets there. And from San Francisco to Tokyo, we find our time incorrect by a whole 24 hours. Our astronauts saw many sunrises and sunsets in a single day. Not very exact or reliable. Time should be considered as a concept which we have formulated and use as an expediency, useful until it begins to dictate its terms to us. Consider as a concept, but only as a concept. Space. Space. Some stars are 1,000,000 light years away, some farther. But what is beyond that? And beyond that? And beyond that? As any young boy might justifiably ask. Dr. Alexis Carrel has said,
any man who doubts the existence of God should go outside some night and look up at the stars.
Actually, material space doesn't make very good sense. But as a mental concept, it is entirely reasonable. It would appear from these explanations that real being and the nature of reality are synonymous with God, and that God is synonymous with truth. We can therefore find out more about God if we find out more about truth. We can discover more about truth if we can discover just what falls into the category of illusion. Schopenhauer has said,
Man has to think to know matter, so he cannot be materialistic.
Plato esteemed matter nothing and mind everything. Berkeley came to the conclusion that,
apart from some mind to perceive it, matter would be non-existent.
Jonathan Edwards could say that
the material universe exists only in the mind.
The laws of nature
were to Kant
creations of our own understanding, acting upon the data of our senses.
Man has no body,
wrote William Blake,
distinct from his soul.
Lao Tzu avowed that
matter is nothing but an appearance for our perception.
Mrs. Eddy said,
all must be mind, or else all must be matter. Neither can produce the other. Darkness and doubt encompass thought so long as it bases creation on materiality.
it would appear, therefore, that mind is substance and matter illusion. As you watch this film or watch anything else, know that it is mind which is accepting or rejecting or interpreting, or for that matter, forming it. If you like, matter can be considered, but only as a concept. But in that case, it becomes mind and not material substance. So in reality, we must conclude that all is mind, from the rolling of the worlds to a potato patch. Probably nothing is more important to the progress of humanity out of its still primitive limitations than the understanding that consciousness is fundamental to experience. Whether experience is subjective in mind or is an external phenomenon is something humanity must decide. The world may well be at a crossroads where a decision must be made.